Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence Independent Media Production. Today, kind of an important overarching topic. We talk a lot about tuning on here. We haven't talked specifically about how to practice tuning. That's what we're doing today. Buddy Rich is famous for saying that he never practiced drums. Clearly that's not exactly true. Like, he got good at drums from playing drums. Maybe he never sat and practiced the way that we practice today, but nobody gets that good at anything without spending a lot of time on it. And the reason why we here have a fairly easy time at this point of getting good sounds out of drums is because we spent a lot of time just doing it. And it's easy for someone who's done this a lot to say, oh, you just have to practice it. But it occurred to us here that maybe a little bit of like a direction for you would be really helpful at this point with understanding some of these concepts and getting you to where you're not scared to mess with the drums anymore, or just get you excited about experimenting. Also, I want to take a quick moment to thank Gruv-X for sponsoring today's video. I use a lot of cross stick in my playing, whether it's for hip hop things or folk things or different kinds of, Latin stuff, things like that. And I'm always wanting a little more out of the drum, especially because some of the sticks I like to play are maple. They're not that hard. They just don't make that pronounced of a cross stick sound. And this is basically like my favorite solution that I've ever found for this problem. The device I'm talking about here is called the X-Click, and it's basically like a second rim that's mounted to the tension rods on the far side of the drum, kind of like away from where you'd be swinging the cross-stick motion. It's a step ahead of anything I've seen before like this because it also has, in addition to the maple plies, it has copper in there as well. It's very bright, it's very clean, it's very consistent, and it's very, very loud if you want it to be, which really solves kind of the primary frustration that I have with cross-stick sometimes. They are also universal enough with the included hardware to fit on anything from a 6-lug 10-inch drum to an 8-lug 15-inch drum and anything in between. Today we have it on a 14-inch 10-lug drum, dropped right on, no problem. Additionally, it comes in a whole bunch of different finishes, so you might even find something that matches your kit, or you can get something really loud and crazy to make it stick out. Last important thing to mention, designed, built, crafted in the USA, 100%. Please follow the link below, check it out, they're super exciting. They're affordable, they're fun, they seem indestructible, and yeah, I'm having a blast with this. Now, rather than get specific about like a snare scheme and a tom scheme and a kick scheme, I want to give you 3 kind of islands to think about here in order of when I think we should start working on them. And basically, ground level, first one is we need to understand what it means to get a single head in tune with itself, or what they call clearing a head. If I was going to practice this out of the gate, never having really done it, I would probably pick a tom, probably a medium-sized tom, maybe something in the 12 or 13 range. You really can do this with anything but a tom to start with. And thing one is we're going to take both of the heads all the way off. We're going to just basically get it naked, and then we're going to take one of the heads, doesn't matter which one, and we are going to practice getting it in tune with itself without any other variables in the situation. Little side note, if you're using any kind of pre-muffled batter heads, maybe use your reso for this experiment because we want to have as little hindrance on the head as possible because we're going to be listening to the overtones to get this where it's needing to go. Now, it's a little bit of a choose your own adventure if you want to do it on the mount or on a snare stand or if you want to set it down, but basically the system goes like this. We want to take all of the tension off, we want to set the head and the hoop on the drum, get all of the tension rods just touching the rim, like not even really tightened, just touching. And then 2 drum keys, if you have them. 1 is okay, 2 is a little bit better, and we want to go even amounts of turn on opposite tension rods very, very slowly. We're talking about a 1/4 of a turn at the most to very slowly and evenly bring tension up onto this head. We don't need a goal for how tight to get it. We don't need a note or anything like that. The goal here is just evenness across the head. if we get it even, then tapping at each of the tension rod locations is going to get us the same overtone or the same pitch, basically, without any wobble in between them. If you're struggling with this, that's super okay. We've all been there. Something that you can do that we still do here is if you hear a couple of lugs that seem to not be getting along, a couple of tension rod locations, try to see if you can tap each one individually and match it with your voice. You can hum, you can go somewhere where no one can hear you, and try to match them to figure out which one is higher or lower, because unlike a piano or a guitar, it's not always clear which one is higher or lower. And a little bit of voice can go a long way with this situation, and then you can either lower the higher one, raise the lower one, but again, tiny, tiny increments, because if we start to really turn things, we can start to affect the other lugs and it'll go off in another kind of wild direction. All right, now we've moved on from beginning to intermediate stage, which is we can get the head in tune with itself consistently. We're feeling good about that. It's not stressing us out anymore. Now, we want to change the pitch of this head. We want to go up, we want to go down. Can we do this with it staying in tune the whole time? The big ticket item here is making sure that we are going evenly and slowly, either with one key in a star pattern or with two keys on the opposing tension rods, really small, and listening in between to see how much of a difference we're making. Going up, the tighter you get, it's going to change as you go. And similarly, when you get down really low in the dumps, you're going to run into some different kinds of sounds. And evenness amongst all of the tension rod locations is what we're after here. Now, it's important to note, especially with snare drums, but toms as well, that lower the tuning, the lower you go, the more crazy the overtones are going to be to control, because those lower ones interact in crazy ways with the wires, and they'll also interact with the other toms. I mean, if you've ever had your floor tom make your snare drum go crazy and also wobbly and nuts, that's some wobbliness in the floor tom, and your snare might be fine. So particularly, even if you're not a low tunings person, practice these low tunings in case you want to use them later, and also just treat it as a challenge, because when you get up into the stratosphere and things are really, really tight, you're not going to hear as much dissonance anyway, even if the drum is struggling to be in tune with itself. This is also why I think particularly that people tend to muffle lower tuned snare drums, because it's not just that they want to get rid of the overtones, it's also that the overtones can be crazy. And if you put, cloth or a ton of moon gel on there or something like that, you can get a fairly good sound if the drum isn't perfectly in tune with itself down there. But I actually like a really ringy low tuned snare drum, and it's worth experimenting with. Just see if you like it too. All right, now we are at the advanced stage. It's not that advanced, it's a little trickier than the previous two. And this is the always controversial intervals between two heads of a two-headed drum. This is less of a snare thing, I think, because I don't generally think about the pitch of the snare side head, because it's generally tuned pretty high, and also it's so much thinner than the batter pretty much 100% of the time. So that's more of a tension thing for me. When I'm thinking about notes, I'm thinking about toms or maybe a wide open bass drum. Now, trying to envision a way to practice this is actually what I do when I'm trying to figure out the sound of a drum that's maybe unfamiliar to me, or if I'm experimenting with heads that are similarly something that I haven't used before. I'll usually start with the batter and get it in a range where it feels good to play, or that makes me go, yeah, that's what a 10-inch tom sounds like. Then I will start to experiment with the reso, changing the range of that one and just leaving the batter alone. So for a good starting spot here, we can go get our tom from back in beginning step one, put the other head on there, and get both of those heads to the same pitch. So they're just exactly matched and they are in tune with themselves. Then take that drum away from the kit, set it on your knee, set it on the couch, set it on a pillow, on your jacket, whatever. We just want to make the opposite head inert. It's not interacting at all. So in the case of this particular experiment, we're going to flip the drum upside down, we're going to set it on its batter head, and we're going to just focus on the overtones around the edge of the resonant head. Now, the idea here is that there's great sounds with a lower than batter reso tuning. There's great sounds the same, and there's great sounds with the reso tuned higher. So we want to use what we learned with raising and lowering them in the intermediate step and apply that just to this head. So we raise it up a little bit, put it on the kit, see how it sounds, lower it down a little bit, always keeping it in tune with itself. That's the big thing. Now, it's important to know with a resonant drum like a tom, if one of the heads is out of tune, it's going to make the other head sound like it's also out of tune. So making sure that they're both staying in tune with themselves is going to make these intervals actually tell you what they're doing with that drum and help you decide if you like it. Okay, I know that's a lot of information to kind of take in. I really want to make sure that everybody understands that all of us have some degree of experience with this. If you own a drum, I'm sure you've turned a lug at some point in the time that you've had it. It's important to remember that going back to the beginning and making sure that you're really comfortable with all of these different steps is going to give you the ability to explore these things. Now, a few bullet points to really think about here is that we are doing this, A, so we can get good sounds fast. B, so that we can understand the range of the instruments that we own. Like for instance, anytime we have a new snare drum in here, we check out super high, medium, super low, maybe even some different heads because we want to know that instrument. So being able to do that for yourself confidently is going to teach you about your instruments and also about your preferences. And finally, C, we are talking about versatility here too. And for me, if I'm getting stressed out trying to experiment with things, it turns me off from doing that. So a lot of this is about alleviating the stress around experimenting and making sure that you feel okay about looking for more versatility in your sound and finding more things that you like, even if it's as simple as a different interval in your toms or tuning your snare batter lower, or just exploring a new drum that you got, or maybe an old one that you've had for a long time that you've kind of gotten sick of. It's worth noting also that we here get a lot of comments about devices for tuning, all sorts of different bots and things like that. And we have a very specific reason why we don't use those things. And it's kind of straightforward. It's that we like feeling confident here that we know we can do good tuning quickly under pretty much any circumstance without having to rely on anything else. And I personally feel, I think we both here personally feel that it's important to feel confident in the sound that you're going for and not just confident that you can hit a certain number when you tune a tension rod. It also means that experimenting following your ears might find you something that you've never heard before, maybe that nobody's ever quite exactly heard before. And if you want to personalize your sound, the more confidence you have in your ears and your hands and just taking that time, it's going to change your relationship to the instrument. All right, that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell below to hear about all of our new videos. Tons of stuff coming out right now. We're really enjoying everything we're getting to do in this new year. Feeling motivated, feeling excited. Thanks so much to Gruv-X for sponsoring today's episode. I've been having a blast with this little device today. It's super duper fun. And lastly, I'm very curious about your experience learning how to tune, whether you're a beginner, advanced, if you're a professional tech. What sort of curriculum did you end up going through on your own, like trying to figure this out, because there aren't really classes for this. We're all sort of self-taught in some way, and I'm really interested to hear just how you got where you got with getting your own sounds.